السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. رب زدني علما اللهم فقهنا في الدين آمين يا رب العالمين. السلام عليكم إن شاء الله. I hope that all of you are doing well. So today for our Ramadan series, our topic is going to be the topic of Du'a. Now, this is a very important topic when it comes to studying the importance of Ramadan and the acts of ibadah that we can do during this month. One of the main things that we should be focusing on, of course, with fasting, with prayers, with reciting the Quran, is going to be making dua. Now, this is a form of ibadah that we do not see talked about very much. It is something that is very, very easy, but we don't place a lot of emphasis on du'as and how important these du'as are during Ramadan in our day-to-day lives as well. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about what is du'a. So du'a in Islam refers to the act of calling out to Allah. It is a form of invocation. It is to seek Allah's help, to ask Allah for what you want. So anytime that you ask Allah for what you want something to be taken away. So for example, you are in a hardship and you want to be taken out of this hardship. Maybe you are asking Allah for something. Maybe you are asking for protection. You are seeking something. So anytime you are asking anything from Allah, you are seeking Allah's help, this is a dua. Du'as can be from the Quran. So we have a lot of du'as that we find in the Quran that Allah Himself has taught us through the words of the Quran. So we can read these du'as. For example, رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً. Now this is a dua that can be found within the verses of the Quran. It is an ayah of the Quran. So this is known as a Quranic dua, meaning that this dua can be found in the Quran, in the verses of the Quran. We can recite these for our own use. We can ask Allah for whatever it is that is mentioned inside of these verses. So we have number one, the Quranic du'as. Number two, we have the masnoon du'as. And these are the du'as that can be found from the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So these are the du'as that the Prophet himself has made, and these have been recorded for us. And these are amongst the best du'as that we can make. Because a lot of the times we do not realize that these are things that we should be asking Allah for. And the Prophet ﷺ had a lot of wisdom. He was asking Allah for many, many things that we ourselves do not know we need to ask Allah for. So we should have a good balance between the Quranic du'as and read from the masnoon du'as as well, from the du'as from the sunnah. So the du'as that the Prophet ﷺ was making for himself, we should be making these du'as as well. And they have been preserved for us. You can find many, many books. There are many apps as well that you can find about the masnoon du'as. And you will find with the Arabic translation and the English as well. So learn these du'as, memorize these du'as. And if you cannot memorize, then at least have your book, have a book, have the app, and then read from the app, read these masnoon du'as, because the Prophet ﷺ was asking these for himself. And we know that if the Prophet was asking for this, then we definitely should be asking for these things from Allah as well. And then for these du'as, the Quranic du'as, the masnoon du'as, you get extra ajr for these because you are reciting or following in the way of the Prophet ﷺ, or you are reciting the ayahs of the Quran. So you get number one, ajr for making dua, and then number two, you get ajr for reciting from the Quran, or you get ajr from following the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. So you get double ajr just for making du'as for yourself. And then number three, we have du'as that are going to be from your own words. So these are going to be du'as that you are just making for things that you yourself want. They are very, very personal. There are things that are relevant to your situation. Now, for du'as, it can be in any language. It does not have to be in Arabic. When we make du'a to Allah, when we ask Allah for something, then we do not have to say it in Arabic. Now, of course, you do get ajr for saying in Arabic. If it's a masnoon dua or a Quranic dua, you get ajr for this. But when you ask Allah for something, there is no language barrier. It does not have to be in Arabic. If your own language is something else, you are comfortable asking Allah for something else in a different language, then use that language. Allah does not have this barrier. He can understand. Now, for du'as, it does not even have to be verbal. Now, sometimes we may think that, I never verbally said this. I never verbally asked Allah for this, but in my mind, I was begging Allah for help. And we learn that Allah hears even the silent calls for help. So a dua does not have to be said out loud. It does not necessarily mean that you have to say certain things out loud in order for this dua to be answered. Sometimes, even in our head, we make du'as that, oh Allah, please help me from this situation inside of your own mind. And that du'a comes true because Allah can hear. Even if you are not saying it out loud, Allah is closer to us than our jugular vein and He hears even the silent calls for help. So we should not be shy from making du'a because we do not know the Quranic du'as, because we do not know the Masnoon du'as, because du'as can be said in any language and in any form. Whatever it is, whatever comfortable way you have of making dua, you should make dua in this way. So we learned that, of course, Quranic and Masnoon du'as, you get extra ajr because you are following the Quran, you are following the Sunnah, but make dua in your own words as well. Ask Allah for whatever you want in your own language. And it does not have to be verbal, even in your mind, you can ask Allah for things, and this will also be considered a dua. Now we learn from the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال الدعاء هو العبادة, that dua, supplication, is worship. So this is a form of worship. Again, very, very underrated form of ibadah. We do not talk about this enough. There is no other religion on this planet that is going to give you ajr, that is going to give you good deeds for asking things for yourself. Normally, if we ask things for ourselves that, I wish I had this, I wish I had that, can someone give me this, can someone give me that, people will think that you are very, very greedy and very needy, that it's a very bad look that you are asking people for things like this. Now, we cannot even verbalize some of the things that we want. We will be seen as jealous. We will say that, I saw someone with something and now I want it. And now I ask Allah for this thing. Now, if we asked out loud, to someone for this very thing, we would be seen as jealous, or we would be seen as someone that's very greedy, that they want everything. They are asking for a lot of money. They are asking for food. They are asking for health. Now, Allah does not feel greedy about anything. Whatever it is that we want, we can ask Allah for. There are certain conditions, we will cover them later on in this session. But we ask Allah for whatever we want, and Allah is not shy. Allah will listen to our du'as no matter what it is, and we should not feel shy asking Allah for things. And not only can we ask Allah for whatever we want, Allah will reward us for it. This is a form of ibadah. You making dua for yourself, for the betterment of yourself, asking Allah for help, asking Allah for things, this is a form of ibadah, and you are going to get ajr for this. And subhanAllah, this is a mercy from Allah that making dua is a form of ibadah and that you will get hasanats for this. And no one on this planet, no other religion is ever going to reward you asking other people for things. Now, other people may get annoyed, but Allah does not get annoyed. You can make dua as late at night as you want. You can wake up at 3 a.m. and make dua to Allah, and He will not get annoyed. Normally, anyone else, you have to call them and say that, can you help me? It's 3 in the morning and they will not want to go help. They will get annoyed that, you woke me up in the middle of the night for this. Now, Allah is always there. He is always listening. And not only is He always listening, He is rewarding you as well for making du'as. So during this Ramadan, instead of focusing only on prayer, only on fasting, now we know that there is another form of ibadah that we can do that is way easier than that. And of course, we will fast, we will pray, we will focus on the recitation of the Quran, but additionally, we will add in something that we can do even while lying in bed, that we have to put no energy, no effort towards, and this is making dua. So we will have to make a little bit more of a conscious effort to make dua to Allah, to spend some time making dua. And we learn that this is a form of worship as well. So inshallah, we will get ajr for this in a way that no one else will ever reward. Now, there is another hadith to ask from Allah. عن عائشة قالت قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا سأل أحدكم فليكثر فإنه يسأل ربه عز وجل. When one of you asks from his Lord, let him ask for even more. Verily, he is asking from his Lord Almighty. So don't feel shy. When it comes to your du'as, do not feel shy of your du'as. Do not think that, I asked Allah for too much. I can't ask Allah for more. Be very, very grand in your du'as. Ask Allah for whatever you want. And we should not feel shy and we should not feel discouraged as well that, I'm asking Allah for great things. That, Allah cannot grant this to me. Ask Allah, because even if Allah does not give you what you want, He will give you something better. Or He will give you hasanat for your dua, or He will give you something like that in the hereafter. So make these du'as as much as you can, make du'as and ask Allah for more than what you are expecting. Sometimes we have very, very little expectations from Allah. We think that, yeah, Allah, please give me this, please give me that. And that's it. We don't pray further for anything else. When we look at the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ and the sunnah of the prophets that came before as well, we look at Zakaria alayhi salam. Now we learn in his case that he was very, very old and he did not have a child. He was very, very old beyond the point of being able to have a child. And still, we learn from his story that when he saw Maryam alayhi salam, when she had so much food in the mihrab, when he saw that Allah had granted something to her, he went right then and there and he made dua. هُنَالِكَ دَعَا زَكَرِيَّا. Right then and there, Zakaria made this dua that Allah grant me a child. And Allah accepted his dua and Allah granted him a child. So sometimes we make dua for things even though we may assume that Allah will not give it to us, that this is impossible, there is no way I will get this. Still make that dua. Because even if Allah does not give you whatever it is that you are asking for, you are getting hasanat for it, and Allah will give you something in the hereafter that may be better than what it is that you've asked for. So don't be shy in your du'as. We learned that the Prophet ﷺ was not shy in his du'as, and none of the prophets that came before him were shy in their du'as. They did not think, is this possible for Allah or not? Will Allah give this to me or not? They simply went, they made the dua, and then they trusted the rest upon Allah. So when we ask Allah for anything, ask Him for even more. Ask Him for whatever it is that you can imagine and don't feel shy because Allah is the most merciful. He is Azza wa Jal. He is the Lord Almighty. There is nothing that is impossible for Him. So don't feel any restriction when it comes to your du'as, when it comes to asking Allah for what it is that you want. And then we learn in Surah Al-Baqarah, وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ. And this is an ayah number 186, and this comes between the verses of Ramadan. So we learned that there's the verse شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن that we learned in the previous class, that the month of Ramadan was the month in which the Quran was sent. So whoever witnesses this month, he should fast. This is the gist of that ayah that comes before. In between these verses of Ramadan, we have this ayah. وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ. And when my servants ask you, O Prophet, about me, then indeed I am near. أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ. I respond to one's prayer when they call upon me. فَلْيَسْتَجِيبُوا لِي. So let them respond to me. وَلْيُؤْمِنُوا بِي. And believe in me. لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْشُدُونَ. Perhaps they will be guided. So now we learn that because this ayah comes in between the verses of Ramadan, we are learning the importance of making dua, especially during Ramadan and outside of it as well. And Allah says, أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ. That when someone calls upon me, I will answer his dua. I will respond to his prayer. And when the servants, when the Sahaba were asking, they were asking about Allah, asking, where is Allah? Allah says, فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ. Indeed, I am near. I am listening. So whatever du'as you have to make them. أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ. That I will respond to whoever is making dua to me. I will respond to his prayer. When someone calls upon me, I will listen and I will respond. And this is the promise of Allah. And He is saying this again between the verses of Ramadan because He knows this month is the month of making dua. And outside of Ramadan as well, make these du'as because Allah is listening and Allah is close. أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ. That He will respond to the call of the one who calls to Him, who prays upon Him. And this is the promise from Allah. And then we learn in Surah Al-Ghafir, ayah number 60, وَقَالَ رَبُّكُمُ ادْعُونِي أَسْتَجِبْ لَكُمْ. Call upon me. Your Lord is saying, قَالَ رَبُّكُمْ, your Lord says, أُدْعُونِي, call upon me, أَسْتَجِبْ لَكُمْ, I will respond to you. Again, this is another promise of Allah that whoever makes dua to Allah, Allah will respond to you. So make these du'as and do not feel shy in making these du'as. And the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ advised that you should ask Allah for all of your needs, even if the strap of your sandal breaks. So for something very, very, very small, we do not even think that we should be making dua for this. And the Prophet ﷺ is advising us that you ask Allah for this. Why? Because even if your dua is not, if you are not given whatever it is that you are making dua for, at least you are getting ajr for this. It is a form of ibadah, so make the dua. There is no harm in making a dua. Now, let's say you are walking and your flip-flop breaks, your sandal breaks. Now, in that moment, of course, you know that a shoe is not going to fly from the sky. So you think that, why should I bother making dua? You make that dua. You make that dua that may Allah help you in this situation. And who knows? You may have some help come from a place where you did not expect. Allah says, وَمَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَل لَّهُ مَخْرَجًا. And whoever has taqwa of Allah, whoever fears Allah, Allah will create for him a way out. So when we make these du'as, things will happen in mysterious ways that we ourselves did not expect. And even if that does not happen, not every time we make du'a will we get some miracle. We will not have our du'as, we will not be given whatever it is that we made du'a for. And this is the case. A lot of the times we make du'a and we will not get what it is that we are making du'a for. We will not have this miraculous help. But even then, Allah will reward us for this dua and He will give us something better. And this is a form of ibadah. So make these du'as, even though you do not think that, Allah will give me this, or you think that, this is too grand, still make that dua so that you can get this ajr, so that this is written as a form of ibadah. So ask Allah for everything. Instead of going around and asking and begging from people, ask Allah, and Allah will find a way to give it to you without having to humiliate yourself by asking others. No matter what it is that you are going through, the first person you always call to has to be Allah. No matter what it is that you are going through, ask Allah first. And then if you need help, ask other people as well. But number one always should be Allah. Ask Allah, and many times Allah will create a way out for you. And He will allow you to come out of this situation in a way that you yourself have never expected. So make these du'as, no matter what it is, no matter how great it is, make these du'as. Ask Allah for whatever it is that you need. Now, why is it important that we make du'as during Ramadan especially? Why is it that when it came to that verse in Surah Al-Baqarah, it was between the verses of Ramadan? أجيب دعوة الداعي إذا دعان. Why was that verse between Ramadan? Why is it important to make dua during Ramadan especially? The Prophet ﷺ said, when the fasting person breaks his fast, his supplication is not turned back. And this is by Ibn Majah. So we learn that at the time of iftar, when someone has been fasting all day, and he breaks his fast and he makes a dua at that moment, his supplication is not turned back. Allah will accept your dua. And then from another hadith, there are three whose supplication is not rejected: the fasting person when he breaks his fast, the just leader, and the supplication of the oppressed person. Allah raises it above the clouds and opens the gates of heaven to it. And the Lord says, by my might I shall surely aid you, even if it should be after a while. So when a person who is fasting all day makes a dua, Allah accepts the dua. It is not rejected. Allah will raise it up into the sky and He will open the gates of heaven to it, meaning your dua is surely going into the heavens. And Allah says, by my might, I will surely aid you. I will help you. Even if it should be after a while, even if it may take a couple of days, a couple of weeks, a couple of years maybe, I will help you because your dua is not rejected. You are amongst the person who is fasting. And we learn from the virtues of fasting that fasting is for Allah alone. So of course, Allah will reward in that same manner. That when we fast for Allah, Allah will give us what we ask for. So during Ramadan especially, throughout the day, and especially at the time of iftar, make du'as. Make as many du'as as you can. As many du'as as time allows you, make dua. because we learned that your supplication is not going to be turned back. Your supplication is not rejected. So if you are fasting during Ramadan, make these du'as especially during the time of iftar. Now, there are a few conditions of the acceptance for dua. So we learned that there is a certain etiquette as well to our du'as and certain things that when we are making du'as, we should be careful of. Number one, when we make du'as, you should call upon no one except Allah. So this is very important. When we make a du'a, only ask from Allah. Don't ask for other idols. Don't ask from other gods. Ask only from Allah. This is very, very important. If you are committing shirk while making du'as, then your du'as will not be accepted. And we see from many, many examples of the people in the past that they would make du'as to all of their idols. And then when things got very, very bad, when they were certain they were about to die, Allah mentions that people were on a boat and that boat is going fine and they're making du'as to the idols. They're committing shirk. And right when the boat starts to capsize and they know that they are right about to die, they call upon Allah, and that is when Allah accepts their dua because they call only upon Allah. So don't call upon other things, call only upon Him. And then we should also avoid seeking a quick response. We learn from the hadith that one of you may be answered so long as he is not hasty and says, I said dua, but I got no response. And this is by Bukhari 6340. So we learn that when we are making du'as, we should not be hasty in seeking a response. That, I made dua and then I never got what I asked for. I made dua for this and I still didn't get it. So don't try to see that quick response. Sometimes we think that, I make dua and the next day something is going to happen. When we look at the stories of the Prophet, their duas were not accepted for many, many years sometimes. When we look at the story of Ayyub alayhi salam, he was praying to Allah for healing. He was praying for so many years for ease, and Allah granted it to him many, many years later. And when we look at, of course, the du'as of Ibrahim and Zakaria alayhi salam, when they made du'as for children as well, their du'as were not answered until they were a very, very old age. When we look at the du'a of Ibrahim, when he made du'a for the city of Mecca, and he asked Allah that populate the city with many, many people who are coming and performing Umrah and Hajj. And from these people make a prophet. He made this dua. This is the time of Ibrahim. And when you look at the time between when Ibrahim came and when the Prophet ﷺ became the Prophet, there is many, many decades in between. And his dua took that long to be accepted, to come to fruition. And we see that Prophet Ibrahim was not witness to this. He did not know whether his dua was accepted or not, whether his dua came true or not. This happened many, many years later. So sometimes when we make a dua, we become very hasty that, I want my dua to be answered right now. And we should not be doing this. When we do this, we are putting our acceptance of the dua in jeopardy. So make dua and then trust Allah that when it is better for you, you will get it. And sometimes that thing may not be better for you. And Allah will not give it to you because it is not good for you. So trust Allah. Whatever it is that happens, that trust Allah that whatever happens, if he gives it to you, if he does not give it to you, in either case, it is good for you, you will get it. And if it is not good for you, Allah will take it away from you. And this is the way that it should be. And then also the dua should not involve sin or severing of the ties of kinship, as we learn from the hadith. A man's du'as may be answered so long as he does not involve sin or severing the ties of kinship. So you should not ask for bad things because this is also going against the conditions of acceptance for dua. So make dua for good things, make dua for healing, make dua for rahmah between the people. Do not make dua that involves sins or severing the ties of kinship. So if something is going to take you further away from Allah, do not make dua for this. And if you do make dua, then you are putting the acceptance of your dua in jeopardy. We should also think positively of Allah. And then we learn from the hadith, make dua to Allah with unwavering certainty of His response. Do not feel doubt. Will Allah give this to me or not? Is Allah even listening? Don't have these kinds of thoughts. Make that dua and think positively of Allah, that have certainty of His response, that I know I will get what I ask for. And if I do not get it, then I will get ajr for it. And if I do not get ajr for it, then Allah will save me from some other kind of sin or some other kind of hardship. So have this certainty that Allah is listening because Allah is always listening to everyone. This is the promise that He made. أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ, that I will respond to the person who calls to me. This is Allah's promise, so don't doubt this. Think positively of Allah. You should also be very focused, aware of the greatness of the one upon whom you are calling. We learn from the hadith, know that Allah does not answer a dua from a distracted heart. So when we ask Allah for things, make sure you know who you are asking from. A lot of the times when we are in prayer, we are making du'as that we are not even aware are du'as. We learn Surah Al-Fatiha is a dua in and of itself. And in that surah, we are asking Allah for the greatest thing. We are asking Allah, ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim, guide us to the straight path, Ya Allah. This is a dua that we are making. And many of us are not even aware we are making this dua, and we say it so distractedly. So we know that from this hadith that if we are making du'as from a distracted heart, Allah will not accept and He will not answer. So when you are making du'as, know who you are asking from and be focused in what you are asking, especially when it comes to your prayers. A lot of the times we memorize these du'as in Arabic and we do not know their meanings. And we do not even know that it is a du'a because we don't know what it is that we're saying. We don't know what it is that we are asking Allah for. So learn the meaning of your prayer as well. Learn the meaning of these du'as. When you are parroting all of these du'as that you have memorized in Arabic without knowing the meaning, this can also be counted as a distracted heart. So learn the meaning of what you are asking for, and inshallah, this will increase your chances of having your dua accepted. And then also we learned that ensuring that one's food comes from permissible sources is also a way to have acceptance of dua. Ibn al-Qayyim said, thus eating from ill-gotten sources saps the strength of the dua and weakens it. And this is from a story of this man that was making dua for something from Allah, and it was basically said to him that the clothes you are wearing are haram, you have gotten them from a haram source, the food you are eating is haram, it is not lawful, the house you are living in is not lawful. So if all of these conditions you are living in are unlawful, then Allah will not accept your dua. And then Ibn al-Qayyim said in response to this story that eating from these haram sources saps the strength of the dua and weakens it, so it will also lessen your chances of your dua being accepted and answered. Now, there is a few etiquettes to making dua as well. We learned this from the Prophet ﷺ that when he would make dua, he would start with the praise of Allah. He would say, Allahumma, O Allah. He would say, Alhamdulillah, Subhanallah, La ilaha illallah. Say these praises of Allah before you start your duas. Send the prayers upon the Prophet ﷺ. You can say the darood before you are reciting your dua. And then when we are learning from the du'as is that we should use the names of Allah. And when we are using the names, we should use the names that are related to our du'as. So if we are asking Allah for healing, we can say Ash-Shafi', the healing. We ask Allah, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, the most merciful. And then if we are asking Allah for wealth, we can say Ya Razzaq, O provider. So learn His names, memorize His names, and then use these names in your du'as. And this will strengthen your dua as well. And then also make dua for others, as this will strengthen your own dua. So this is amongst the etiquettes of making dua, that if I am asking something for myself, make dua for someone else, and the angels will make that same dua back to you. So first, I make dua for myself. I make that same dua for someone else, and now the angels are making that dua for me as well. So now I have doubled the duas for myself. So this is kind of like a loophole that you can use. You are making dua for other people, and then while you are doing that, you are also getting something out of it. So kind of like a win-win situation. So when you are making a dua for yourself, include everyone as well. Ask Allah that, may Allah grant healing to me and healing to anyone in the Muslim Ummah who is suffering. May Allah have mercy on me and anyone else on this earth. So make du'as for other as well, and this will strengthen your own dua. And then you can finish with Ameen, make your dua, and then say Ameen after you are done. So now we do have this question. A lot of the times people make dua and then they say, why did I not get what I prayed for? And the Prophet ﷺ said that there is no Muslim who calls upon Allah within which is no sin or cutting family ties. So again, this is one of the conditions of acceptance. But that Allah will give him one of three answers. Number one, he will quickly fulfill his supplication, meaning that you will get what you asked for. I made dua for something and Allah gave it to you. Number two, He will store it for him in the hereafter, meaning that you will not get it in this world, but in the hereafter in Jannah, Allah will give you what you asked for. Or number three, he will divert an evil from him similar to it. Meaning that Allah will not give you something, but maybe there was something bad that was going to happen to you. It was written that something bad would happen to you. You ask Allah for a new car and you don't get a new car. But maybe you were meant to get into a very horrible accident and Allah saved you from that. So when your dua is accepted, acceptance of dua does not mean getting what you ask for. This is a very big misconception. Acceptance of dua does not rely on getting what you asked for. Acceptance of dua means one of these three things. You will either get what you ask for, or Allah will give it to you in the hereafter, or He will save you from something worse that was going to happen to you in this world. And they said, in that case, we will ask for more. So the Sahaba basically said that if this is the case, then we will ask Allah for more. We're going to make even more dua because then we either don't get what we asked for, which is fine, or Allah will give us something better, or Allah will save us from something bad. So, of course, who wouldn't want this? So, they're saying that they're going to make even more dua so that they can get one of these three things. And the Prophet ﷺ said, Allah has even more, so ask. Whatever it is you want, ask Allah for it, and He will give you one of these three things. And regardless, you are getting ajr as well. This is a form of ibadah. So, you're getting ajr for asking, so go ahead and ask. Allah has more. Allah is limitless. Whatever it is you want, you ask Allah for. And this is the source from Muslim Ahmad. So we learn that even if you are not getting what it is that you ask for, that does not mean Allah is not listening to you. That does not mean that you are not getting something better. And trust in Allah. This is so important. Trust in Allah. If Allah does not give it to you, do not become angry with Him. Do not think that, Allah does not listen to me. He listens to the du'as of everyone else, and I never get what I ask for. All of these people are living their best lives, and I am making dua and suffering, and I am not getting what I am asking for. This does not mean that Allah is not listening to your du'as. It only means that maybe it is not good for you in this moment. And we never know what is good for us. We make dua for so many things, and it is not good for us. And then later on, we realize that, yeah, that would have been horrible. If I had gotten that, it was not meant for me. Allah knows what is best, so trust Him. And don't have these kinds of thinking that, Allah is not listening and then Allah is not accepting my dua. Now, when it comes to dua, there are certain times of acceptance, meaning that the du'as made during this time are more likely to be accepted. And number one, of course, related to Ramadan is Laylatul Qadr. And we learned this because Aisha, she asked the Prophet ﷺ, if I know what night is Laylatul Qadr, what should I say during it? And he said, Allahumma innaka afuun tuhibbul afwa fa'fu anni. Oh Allah, you are forgiving and you love forgiveness, so forgive me. So basically, what we infer from this hadith is that if there is one thing that you should ask for and you know it will be accepted, it is forgiveness. So Laylatul Qadr is the time when Allah will accept the du'as. So make du'as. And of course, we do not know when Laylatul Qadr is. It could be during any of the 10 odd nights. So this means that instead of only focusing on the 27th, we should make du'as all throughout the 10 nights. Any of the 10 nights, especially the odd nights, make du'as of equal measure. Don't spend only one day doing something. Spend it spread out throughout the week. And then we learn that there is also in the depths of the night. So we learn from the hadith that there is a time, especially the time of the tahajjud, when Allah will go down to the lower heavens and He will say, who will call upon me that I may answer him? Who will ask of me that I may give him? Who will seek my forgiveness that I may forgive him? And this is narrated by Al-Bukhari. So we learn that there is a time during the night when Allah will come down and He will ask His slaves, does anyone want anything? I will grant it to you right now. Allah Himself is asking and opening this invitation that if anyone wants to make this dua, now is the time to do it. And this is the time of tahajjud. And we learn from one of the sayings of the Sahaba that the dua made during the tahajjud does not miss its target. It is like an arrow going straight into the middle of the target. It does not miss its path. So make dua during tahajjud. If you truly want something, if you want something very, very badly, get up in tahajjud and make dua for it. And if you are not getting up in tahajjud and you are not making dua for it, then you do not want it badly enough. Make dua in tahajjud. Allah is going down. He is asking us, is anyone making dua for anything? Does anyone need anything? Does anyone want anything? Does anyone want forgiveness? Does anyone want mercy? Ask me and I will give it to you right now. Allah Himself is opening this invitation, so we have to accept. Make dua during tahajjud. And then we learn number three, following the prescribed prayers. So, according to the hadith of Abu Umama, it was said that, O Messenger of Allah, which dua is heard? And the Prophet ﷺ responded, in the last third of the night and following the prescribed prayers. So, last third of the night, as we learned in the previous one, this is going to be the time of tahajjud. So, this is the time of acceptance. And then also following the prescribed prayers. And there was a little bit of difference of the scholar opinion about what exactly it means to be following the prescribed prayers. Does it mean before the salam? Does it mean afterwards? So it is going to be any time of the prayer. So for example, any time when you are praying after the Jamaat, after you have said salam, make these du'as before the time of the prayer, then make these du'as just around the time of prayer, make these du'as, and inshallah, this is also a time of acceptance. And then number four, between the adhan and the iqamah, and it was narrated that a dua offered between the adhan and the iqamah is not rejected. So after the adhan has happened and before the iqamah, there is about 5 to 10 minutes. So use this time to make dua. This is also a time of acceptance. And then number five, when the call for the prescribed prayers is given. So again, at that time of the adhan, make these duas. Make these du'as. This is the most important time to be making du'as between the adhan, the iqamah, the prescribed prayers, all of this time. And we have this 5 times a day. So subhanAllah, we have so many opportunities for acceptance. 5 times a day, we are hearing the adhan, we are hearing the iqamah, we are praying our prayers. So every single time you are praying, make du'a for whatever it is that you want, and inshallah, Allah will accept. And then number six, when rain falls, this was said by the hadith that there are two which will not be rejected. Dua at the time of the call to prayer and dua when it is raining. So also when it is raining, you have this opportunity to make dua and inshallah Allah will accept. Number seven, at a certain time of the night. So this is from the hadith that during the night there is a time when the Muslim does not ask for the good of this world and the hereafter, but it will be given to him, and that happens every night. So there is a time during the night that only Allah knows. So of course we should try to stay up during the night, especially the last 1/3, pray our tahajjud, make these du'as, and then make du'a that we are following in this time of night. There is also a certain time on Friday that we learn from the hadith that during Friday, there is a time when a Muslim slave does not stand and pray and ask Allah for something, but he will give it to him. And then he also gestured with his hand to indicate how short that time is. So some of the scholars say that this is between the time of Dhuhr and Asr, between Asr and Maghrib perhaps, but there is a certain time on Friday when du'as are accepted. So we should make du'a throughout the day and inshallah pray that we fall within this certain time. Also, when drinking Zamzam water, we learned this from the hadith that Zamzam water is for that for which it is drunk. So if you are drinking for a reason, for healing, for making dua, whatever it is, inshallah, Allah will accept during this time. When making sajda as well, the Prophet ﷺ said the closest that a person is to his Lord is when he is making sajda. So say a great deal of dua then. So we should have very long sujood. When you are in sujood, make dua for whatever it is that you want because this is the time when you are closest to Allah. And then also when hearing the crowing of a rooster, and this is from the hadith, when you hear the crowing of a rooster, ask Allah of his bounty, for he has seen an angel. The rooster has seen an angel, meaning the angels are near, so then ask Allah for his bounty, ask Allah for rahmah, for fadl, and then make dua as well. And then also the dua of one who is sick. So we learn that for anyone who makes this dua when they are sick, Allah will respond to his dua. Also for one who is in travel, if any dua you make while you are in safar, that is also accepted. And then as we learn the dua of the fasting person, the dua of a person who is just or a person who is oppressed, all of these duas also are going to be accepted, inshallah. So we should try to avail of all of these opportunities that we have, especially during Ramadan, our times of prayers between the iqamah and the adhan, especially at the time of iftar. When we are breaking our iftar, we are in that state that we have been fasting all day, and Allah will not reject our du'as during this time. So make avail of these opportunities. Do as many du'as as you can because now we know that this is ajr for us. This is a form of ibadah. So even if you are tired from reciting Quran, you cannot stand longer for tarawih. You cannot stand for more prayers, more sunnah prayers. If you are done fasting for the day and you don't know what it is that you're supposed to do now with your time, make dua. And this is such a selfish form of ibadah that you are asking Allah for things that will benefit yourself. And Allah is rewarding you for this. And this is truly from the mercy of Allah. So we will ask Allah that He accepts all of our du'as during this time, all of our ibadah during Ramadan as well. And that inshallah He will grant whatever it is that we are asking for or give us something better from His infinite wisdom and mercy, inshallah. So we will stop here for today. Jazakallahu khairan kathiran. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.